Your savings account is already worthless. Not in 10 years. Not when the dollar collapses. Right now, because the number in that account represents purchasing power tied to a system that breaks catastrophically the moment currency fails. And currency failure is not a question of if, but when, with historical precedent showing that every fiat currency eventually reaches zero value. What I am about to show you are 21 items, most costing under $5 each, that will make you wealthier than people hoarding gold when the monetary system collapses. Not metaphorically wealthy, practically wealthy. Able to trade for food, security, medical care, and survival essentials while gold owners discover that nobody wants their precious metals because you cannot eat gold, you cannot purify water with gold, and you cannot defend yourself with gold. This is not theory. This is documented pattern from every major economic collapse in the last century. Weimar Germany, Zimbabwe, Venezuela, Argentina, Yugoslavia. The same items become barter currency. The same people who prepared correctly become the new wealthy class. And the same people who trusted traditional stores of value become desperate. Drop gold in the comments if you think precious metals will save you in collapse. Drop barter if you already understand that utility equals post-collapse wealth. Because what comes next will either validate your preparation strategy or completely destroy your assumptions about value, wealth, and survival economics. And I need you to understand something critical before we start. The items I'm going to reveal are not secret. They are publicly known. The reason most people do not stockpile them is psychological inability to accept that a $5 item from Walmart can become more valuable than a $500 gold coin. Your brain rejects this because you have been conditioned to equate cost with value. In functioning economies, this correlation holds. In collapsed economies, this correlation inverts. The expensive becomes worthless. The cheap becomes priceless. Let me establish the framework through historical example. Sarajevo, 1992 through 1996. 377 days of siege. Currency hyperinflated to worthlessness. Gold and jewelry existed, but nobody wanted them because you cannot trade inedible, non-functional items for food when everyone is starving. The items that became currency were lighters, which provided fire for cooking and warmth, antibiotics, which prevented death from infection, ammunition, which provided security and hunting capability, alcohol, which provided disinfection, pain management, and psychological escape, coffee and cigarettes, which provided addiction relief. None of these items were expensive pre-collapse. All became more valuable than gold during collapse. Survivors who stockpiled these items became wealthy by barter standards. Survivors who stockpiled traditional wealth died poor. The pattern repeats across every economic collapse. Venezuela, 2014 to present. Hyperinflation destroyed the bolivar. Gold has value, but only if you can find buyers, which requires access to international markets most people do not have. The items that became local barter currency were soap because hygiene prevents disease, cooking oil because calories are survival, batteries because light and communication require power, diapers because parents will trade anything for infant care supplies. These items cost dollars pre-collapse. They trade for weeks of food during collapse. Here is item number 1. Disposable lighters. Not matches, not ferro rods. Cheap plastic disposable lighters like Bic. You can buy them for 50 cents each in bulk. You should stockpile 1,000. Yes, 1,000. That is $500 investment that will make you wealthy beyond measure in barter economy. Here's why. Fire is non-negotiable for survival. Cooking, water purification through boiling, heat, light, psychological comfort. Every human needs fire. Most humans cannot create fire without tools. Matches degrade. Ferro rods require skill. Lighters are instant, reliable, idiot-proof fire source. A single lighter provides approximately 3,000 lights before exhaustion. 1,000 lighters provide 3 million fire-starting instances. You become the fire merchant. You trade 1 lighter for a week of someone's food production. You trade 5 lighters for a month of security services. You trade 10 lighters for medical care. The math is overwhelming. $500 investment becomes functional wealth equivalent to hundreds of thousands in barter value. But lighters are useless without something to light, which brings us to item number 2, candles. Specifically, long burn emergency candles or bulk tea lights. You can buy tea lights for 10 cents each. You should stockpile 500 to 1,000. Candles provide light without electricity, heat in enclosed spaces, and fire starting assistance. More importantly, candles represent time-based value. One candle burns for 4 hours. That is 4 hours of light, which is 4 hours of productive activity after dark, which multiplies economic output. You trade candle for labor. You trade candle for goods. You become the artificial daylight merchant in a world where electricity no longer exists. Item number 3 is where people start understanding the pattern. Salt, not fancy Himalayan pink salt, not sea salt, cheap iodized table salt. 26-ounce container costs $2. You should stockpile 50 pounds minimum. Salt is survival necessity that most people do not stockpile because it is so common they assume it will always be available. Wrong. Salt production requires industrial infrastructure. When infrastructure collapses, salt becomes scarce rapidly, and humans die without salt. Sodium is required for cellular function, nerve transmission, and muscle contraction. You lose sodium through sweat and exertion. In collapse scenarios where people are physically active, sodium depletion kills within weeks. Salt also preserves food, which multiplies value because food preservation extends scarce calories. You become the salt merchant. You trade salt for fresh food that people cannot preserve. You preserve it and extend value. You trade preserved food at premium. 50 pounds of salt costs $100 and provides barter value equivalent to tens of thousands of dollars. Item number 4 is medical. Alcohol wipes and isopropyl alcohol. Individually packaged alcohol wipes cost 2 cents each. Bottles of 91% isopropyl alcohol cost $3. You should stockpile 1,000 wipes and 20 bottles of isopropyl. Alcohol is antiseptic that prevents infection, which is leading cause of death in collapse scenarios where medical care is unavailable. A cut that gets infected becomes blood poisoning, becomes death in 7 days without antibiotics. Alcohol wipes prevent this. You become the infection prevention merchant. You trade alcohol wipes for labor, food, and security. 20 bottles of isopropyl also provide fuel for alcohol stoves, pain relief through topical application, and trade value for people brewing makeshift disinfectants. Total investment is approximately $100. Barter value is unlimited because infection is universal threat.
Item number 5 is controversial but mathematically correct. Cigarettes. Even if you do not smoke. Especially if you do not smoke. Nicotine is one of the most addictive substances humans consume. Smokers experience withdrawal that is psychologically and physically agonizing. In collapse scenarios, cigarettes vanish within days. Production stops. Distribution stops. Existing supplies get consumed. And 40 million Americans are nicotine addicts who will trade anything for cigarettes. You stockpile cigarettes not for personal use, but as merchant inventory. Carton of cigarettes costs $50 to $70. You should stockpile 10 to 20 cartons if budget allows. Store in freezer or cool, dry, sealed location. Cigarettes remain tradable for years if stored correctly. 1 carton, 200 cigarettes, trades for 200 separate transactions or 20 bulk trades depending on negotiation. Your $2,000 cigarette investment becomes wealth equivalents of tens of thousands in desperate barter market. Item number 6 is hygiene. Bar soap. Not liquid soap. Not body wash. Traditional bar soap like Ivory or Dial. Bar soap costs $1. You should stockpile 100 bars. Soap prevents disease by enabling hygiene. When water is scarce and sanitation fails, disease spreads exponentially. Cholera, dysentery, typhoid, all preventable through basic hygiene enabled by soap. You become the disease prevention merchant. You trade soap for food and labor. Soap also cleans wounds, washes clothing, and maintains psychological normalcy through cleanliness. 100 bars costs $100 and provides barter value equivalent to thousands. Item number 7 is illumination. Batteries. Specifically, AA and AAA alkaline batteries. Individual batteries cost 50 cents to $1 depending on brand and quantity. You should stockpile 500 of each size. Batteries power flashlights, radios, and any portable electronics that still function. Light extends productive hours. Communication provides information and coordination. You become the power merchant in a world without electricity. You trade batteries for food, labor, and services. 500 batteries cost $250 to $500. Barter value is tens of thousands because power is universal need. Item number 8 is fire starting backup. Strike Anywhere matches in waterproof containers. Box of Strike Anywhere matches costs $5. You should stockpile 20 boxes, $100 investment. Matches provide fire starting capability when lighters fail. They are backup to backup, which is critical because fire is non-negotiable. You trade matches for goods and services. You maintain redundancy in your own fire-starting capability. Matches stored correctly last decades. Pause here. We have covered 8 items. Lighters, candles, salt, alcohol wipes, cigarettes, soap, batteries, matches. Total investment is approximately $1,500 to $2,000. Total barter value in collapse economy is functionally unlimited because every item addresses universal survival need. Most people quit watching right here because they cannot psychologically accept that $2,000 of Walmart purchases makes them wealthier than $20,000 of gold. If you are still here, comment, "Still here," right now. Because items 9 through 21 are where we separate people who become post-collapse wealthy from people who starve with gold in their pockets. Item number 9 is medication. Over-the-counter pain relievers. Ibuprofen and acetaminophen. 200-count bottle costs $8. You should stockpile 10 bottles of each. Pain relief is universal need that becomes acute in collapse when injuries happen and medical care is unavailable. Broken bones, dental pain, headaches, inflammation, all require pain management. You become the pain relief merchant. You trade individual pills or small quantities for food and services. 2,000 tablets costs $160. And provides 2,000 separate trade opportunities. Item number 10 is vision. Reading glasses in multiple magnifications. Dollar stores sell reading glasses for $1 to $3. You should stockpile 20 pairs in various strengths from plus 1.0 to plus 3.0. Approximately half of adults over 40 require vision correction for reading. When glasses break and replacements are unavailable, people become functionally disabled for detail work. You become the vision merchant. You trade reading glasses for significant goods and services because restoring someone's functional capability is high-value transaction. Item number 11 is sewing supplies. Needles, thread, and buttons. Complete sewing kit costs $5. You should stockpile 10 kits. Clothing wears out. Repairs become necessary. Most people do not know how to sew but will trade for sewing services or supplies. You provide repair capability or you trade supplies to people who can sew. $50 investment provides ongoing trade opportunities. Item number 12 is water purification. Bleach. Unscented chlorine bleach, 6% sodium hypochlorite. Gallon jug costs $3. You should stockpile 20 gallons if you have storage space. Bleach purifies water at ratio of 8 drops per gallon for clear water, 16 drops per gallon for cloudy water. 1 gallon purifies approximately 10,000 gallons of drinking water. 20 gallons provide 200,000 gallons of purification capability. You become the safe water merchant. You trade purified water or you trade bleach by the ounce for food and goods. $60 investment becomes massive wealth equivalence. Item number 13 is adhesive. Duct tape. Roll costs $5. You should stockpile 20 rolls. Duct tape repairs everything. Shelter. Clothing. Equipment. Injuries. It is universal problem solver. You trade duct tape for goods and services. You use it for infinite repairs. $100 investment provides massive utility value. Item number 14 is cordage. Paracord or utility rope. 100-foot spool costs $10. You should stockpile 500 feet minimum. Cordage enables construction, repairs, trapping, and countless survival tasks. You trade cordage by the foot. You use it for everything. $50 investment becomes high-value barter item. Item number 15 is tool maintenance. Sharpening stones. Basic sharpening stone costs $10. You should stockpile 5. Knives, axes, and tools dull with use. Sharpening restores function. You trade sharpening services or stones themselves. $50 investment becomes ongoing income stream through service provision. If you understood that post-collapse wealth comes from providing utility, not hoarding traditional value, you are smarter than 95% of preppers. But can you explain why cigarettes have higher barter value than gold despite gold being traditionally precious? Comment your answer. I reply to the best explanations.
Item number 16 is infant care. Diapers in various sizes. Pack of diapers costs $20. You should stockpile 10 packs across sizes if budget allows. Parents with infants will trade anything for diapers. Anything. Food, labor, valuables, security services. Because cloth diapering requires water for cleaning, which is scarce in collapse. Disposable diapers are a temporary solution that desperate parents need. $200 investment becomes massive barter leverage with parents. Item number 17 is fire acceleration. Petroleum jelly. Large jar costs $5. Petroleum jelly is fire-starting aid, wound protection, and moisture barrier. Cotton balls soaked in petroleum jelly burn for 5 minutes each, creating easy fire-starting tinder. You trade petroleum jelly by the ounce. You use it for multiple purposes. $25 for 5 jars provides high utility value. Item number 18 is writing supplies. Pens, pencils, and paper. Pack of pens costs $3. Pack of pencils costs $2. Ream of paper costs $5. You should stockpile 5 packs of each plus 5 reams of paper. Communication and record keeping remain necessary in collapse. Most people will not have supplies. You trade writing materials for goods. You maintain your own records. $50 investment provides utility that people forget until they need it desperately. Item number 19 is oral hygiene. Toothbrushes and toothpaste. Toothbrush costs $1. Toothpaste costs $3. You should stockpile 50 toothbrushes and 20 tubes of toothpaste. Dental problems become medical emergencies in collapse when dentists are unavailable. Prevention through hygiene is only solution. You trade dental supplies for goods. $150 investment prevents suffering and provides trade value. Item number 20 is illumination backup. Glow sticks. Pack of 10 glow sticks costs $5. You should stockpile 100 glow sticks. Glow sticks provide chemical light for 12 hours, require no batteries or fuel, and work in any conditions. You trade glow sticks for goods. You use them for signaling, marking, and emergency light. $50 investment provides utility that batteries cannot match in certain scenarios. Item number 21 is the controversial one that makes everything else work. Ammunition in common calibers. This is legal in most jurisdictions and represents ultimate barter currency in collapse. Box of 50 rounds costs $20 to $40, depending on caliber. You should stockpile 1,000 rounds minimum across calibers you own or common calibers like 9mm, 5.56, and 12 gauge. Ammunition provides security, hunting capability, and barter value. $10,000 investment becomes wealth preservation that appreciates continuously in barter economy because ammunition is consumed and irreplaceable. What I am about to say will anger people who think discussing ammunition and cigarettes as barter items is immoral. If you are ready for uncomfortable economic truth about survival, hit the like button now. Here it is. Morality is luxury of functioning societies. In collapse, survival trumps morality. People will trade for cigarettes because addiction is more powerful than virtue. People will trade for ammunition because security is prerequisite for everything else. You can judge this or you can prepare for this. Your choice. But judgment does not change human nature, and human nature determines barter value. Now, let me show you the multiplication principle that turns these 21 items into wealth machine. You are not stockpiling for personal use only. You are stockpiling as merchant inventory. You become post-collapse Walmart. People come to you with goods, labor, or skills. You trade your stockpiled items at markup. One lighter trades for 3 days of labor. One bar of soap trades for 10 pounds of fresh vegetables. One box of ammunition trades for 1 month of security services. You acquire more goods through trade. You maintain inventory through careful management. You become wealthy not through hoarding, but through facilitating exchange and economy where money no longer functions. The historical precedent is overwhelming. Every economic collapse creates merchant class that controls distribution of scarce essentials. Sarajevo had cigarette merchants who became wealthiest people in siege economy. Venezuela has soap merchants who control hygiene supply. Zimbabwe had salt merchants during hyperinflation. Argentina had battery merchants during blackouts. These are not criminals. These are people who understood supply, demand, and utility value. They stockpiled before collapse. They traded during collapse. They became wealthy by barter standards. Let me address objections. First, is it not immoral to profit from suffering? No. You are providing goods people desperately need. You are facilitating survival. The alternative is those people dying because supplies do not exist. Providing goods at markup is not exploitation when you are the only source. It is market economics. Second, will not people just take your supplies by force? Possibly, which is why operational security matters. You do not advertise your stockpile. You trade cautiously with established relationships. You maintain security capability. But the bigger picture is that trading is more sustainable than raiding. Raiders eventually run out of targets. Merchants create ongoing value. Third, what if I am wrong and collapse does not happen? Then you have supplies that remain useful in normal times. Lighters light candles. Batteries power devices. Salt seasons food. Soap cleans. You lose nothing except opportunity cost of capital, which is minimal for $2,000 to $10,000 investment. But if collapse does happen and you're not prepared, you lose everything. The risk-reward calculation is overwhelming in favor of preparation. Real talk. How many of you have more than $1,000 in savings, but less than $100 in barter supplies? Drop a bank emoji if that is you. You are not alone. 99% of people trust currency more than utility, but now you know better. The question is whether you act on this knowledge. Here is your action plan. You allocate $2,000 to $10,000 depending on budget. You acquire items 1 through 21 in quantities I specified. You store in climate-controlled, secure location. You maintain operational security. You rotate perishables on schedule. You become the merchant in waiting. When currency fails, you activate. You trade carefully. You provide value. You become wealthy by new standards. Let me give you the storage and security protocols, because having supplies means nothing if they are stolen, damaged, or degraded. Storage location should be climate controlled, meaning temperatures between 50 and 75 degrees Fahrenheit with low humidity. Basements work if not damp. Interior closets work. Climate control storage units work, but create dependency on access. You want supplies you can reach regardless of infrastructure status. Organized by item type. Lighters in sealed containers with desiccant packs. Cigarettes in freezer or sealed containers. Batteries in original packaging in cool location. Salt in airtight containers. Everything labeled with dates and quantities. Security protocol is operational security first, physical security second. Operational security means nobody knows what you have except trusted family or group members. You do not tell neighbors. You do not post on social media. You do not brag about preparations. The best security is being unknown target. Physical security means locks, concealment, and defense capability. Supplies should not be visible from entry points. They should be in locked containers or rooms. You should have security capability appropriate to your situation and legal in your jurisdiction. The goal is making your supplies harder to access than your neighbor's supplies. Criminals and raiders choose easy targets. Rotation protocol matters for perishables. Cigarettes last years in freezer, 5 years at room temperature in sealed containers. Batteries last 10 years if stored correctly. Medication lasts years past printed expiration if stored cool and dark. You use oldest stock first. You replace continuously. You maintain inventory levels. This is not hoard and forget. This is active management. Trading protocol is essential. You do not trade from your primary stockpile location. You never bring people to your supplies. You meet at neutral locations. You trade small quantities initially to establish trust. You escalate trading volume as relationships prove reliable. You never trade everything you have of any item. You maintain reserve for personal use and future trades. You accept goods, labor, and skills as payment. You establish reputation as fair dealer who provides value. Reputation becomes your most valuable asset in barter economy. Now, let me address the elephant in the room. Why 21 items? Why these specific items? The answer is universality plus irreplaceability. These items meet needs that every human has. Fire, water, food preservation, hygiene, pain relief, security, light, communication. And these items cannot be easily replaced through improvisation or scavenging. You can improvise shelter. You can improvise tools. You cannot improvise fire-starting capability if you lack tools. You cannot improvise antibiotics. You cannot improvise ammunition. Irreplaceability creates value. Universal need creates demand. Supply control creates wealth. The items I did not include are equally telling. I did not include food because food is produced continuously through agriculture and hunting. Stockpiling food is personal survival strategy, not wealth creation strategy. I did not include water because water sources exist naturally and you trade purification capability, not water itself. I did not include gold because gold has no immediate utility and requires finding buyers who have goods you want. I did not include firearms because firearms are durable goods that most people already own, so supply is adequate and demand is limited. Let me show you the wealth multiplication through scenario. You invested $10,000 in these 21 items. Currency collapses. You wait 30 days while chaos sorts into new equilibrium. You begin trading. 1 lighter per week trades for 3 days of labor. 52 weeks is 52 lighters traded for 156 days of labor, which is 6 months of labor from 2 people. That labor produces goods, builds infrastructure, provides security. Value created exceeds $10,000 in first year. You still have 950 lighters remaining. You trade soap for fresh vegetables. You trade battery for information and communication access. You trade ammunition for security services. Within 1 year, you have created more wealth through barter than you had in pre-collapse currency terms. Within 5 years, you are wealthiest person in your community by local standards. This is not fantasy. This is documented outcome from every barter economy in history. The people who control scarce necessities become wealthy. The people who provide ongoing value through trading become powerful. The people who hoard traditional wealth and cannot trade become poor despite past riches. Your $10,000 investment executed correctly makes you merchant-class wealthy in post-collapse economy. Now let me address timing. When do you acquire these items? Now, not when collapse seems imminent. Waiting until crisis means competing with panic buyers, facing empty shelves, paying inflated prices, and possibly being unable to acquire supplies at all. You acquire now while prices are normal, availability is high, and you can be selective about quality. You spread purchases over months if budget requires. You buy opportunistically when sales happen. You accumulate systematically until you hit target quantities. The second timing question is when you start trading, not immediately after collapse. You wait until chaos stabilizes into new patterns. This takes weeks to months depending on collapse severity. You observe who is what. You identify needs. You establish contact cautiously. You make small trades to test trustworthiness. You scale up as relationships prove reliable. Patience in early phase prevents losses to betrayal or violence. Let me synthesize this into framework. Post-collapse wealth derives from three factors: supply of universally needed irreplaceable items, capability to trade safely and consistently, reputation as reliable value provider. You build supply through pre-collapse stockpiling. You build trading capability through careful relationship development and security maintenance. You build reputation through fair dealing and consistent availability. These three factors make you wealthy by any standard that matters in collapse economy. You now know what items to stockpile, why they have value, how to store them, and how to trade them. You know more about post-collapse economics than 99% of preppers who stockpile gold and freeze-dried food while ignoring barter currency. That is your advantage. Most people will be desperate. You will be positioned. Most people will be poor. You will be wealthy. Most people will regret not preparing. You will be executing plan you built before crisis. Let me give you the final pieces that complete the system. First is diversification within categories. You do not buy 1,000 of the same lighter. You buy 500 BIC, 300 generic, 200 premium. This provides options for different trade scenarios and protects against quality issues with specific brands. You do not buy all 9mm ammunition. You buy a mix of 9mm, 5.56, 12 gauge, and 22 long rifle. This maximizes trading opportunities with different people. Diversification within categories is risk management. Second is quality selection. Buy middle quality items, not lowest or highest. Lowest quality fails and destroys your reputation. Highest quality is unnecessary expense that does not increase trade value proportionally. Middle quality works reliably and maximizes return on investment. Exception is ammunition where quality matters more, and matches where strike-anywhere capability is essential regardless of brand. Third is packaging consideration. Items in original packaging trade better than loose items. Original packaging provides authenticity and tamper evidence. You keep items in manufacturer packaging when possible. Exception is bulk items like salt where you repackage into smaller trade quantities. You use seal bags or containers that look professional and protect contents. Fourth is education investment. You learn basic skills related to your inventory. How to purify water with bleach. How to use alcohol for wound care. How to start fire with lighters in difficult conditions. This makes you service provider in addition to goods provider. You trade knowledge along with items. This multiplies value and builds relationships that create ongoing trading opportunities. Fifth is alliance building. You identify other prepared people before collapse. You establish mutual understanding. You do not share exact inventory, but you share general capabilities. You create trading network before it is needed. When collapse happens, you activate network. You trade with trusted people. You build cooperative relationships that provide security and expanded trading opportunities. Lone merchants become targets. Network merchants become powerful. Let me address the question of legal concerns. Stockpiling is legal. Trading in barter economy is legal. Selling tobacco and ammunition has regulations in normal times, but those regulations become unenforceable in collapse. Your concern is not legal liability. Your concern is surviving collapse and helping your family and community survive. Prioritize accordingly. Final action steps. Today, you create lists of 21 items with target quantities. This week, you allocate budget and identify suppliers. This month, you begin acquiring. You buy what budget allows. You accumulate systematically. You track inventory. You maintain security. You prepare psychologically for a role transition from consumer to merchant. This is mindset shift. You stop thinking about stockpiling for personal use only. You start thinking about positioning for a post-collapse economy. Let me close with the ultimate truth about wealth in collapse. Wealth is not what you own. Wealth is what you can trade. Gold owners who cannot find buyers are poor. Supply owners who can trade consistently are wealthy. You are building tradable supply. You are positioning for a post-collapse merchant role. You are creating wealth that matters when everything else fails. You now know the 21 items that make you wealthy when currency dies. You know why they have value. You know how to acquire them. You know how to store them. You know how to trade them. You know more than 99% of people about barter economics and post-collapse wealth. That knowledge is your advantage. The question is whether you act on it or file it away as interesting but not urgent. That decision determines your outcome when currency fails. Honest question. What is the one item from this list you are buying this week? Comment below. I read every single one. And if you think I'm wrong about gold being worthless in collapse, good. Drop your reasoning. Best comment gets pinned and detailed response. Because I want you thinking critically about value and utility, not accepting conventional wisdom that fails under pressure. If this video changed how you think about wealth, survival, and preparation, share it with one person who is concerned about economic stability. Not for me, for them. Because they deserve to know that wealth preservation is not about precious metals and crypto. It is about utility and trading capability. They deserve to know that $10,000 spent correctly now makes them wealthy when systems fail. Next video covers the biggest mistakes people make when building barter stockpiles and how to avoid them. The items everyone thinks have value, but actually do not. The items that seem worthless but become invaluable. Hit bell so you do not miss it. Your post-collapse wealth depends on this knowledge. Stay strategic. Stay prepared. Or stay poor when currency dies. Your choice. But understand that the choice is yours to make now, while supplies are available and prices are normal. After collapse, there are no choices, only consequences of choices you made or failed to make before. One more thing. See that progress bar? Not done yet. 99% leave before this. The 1% who stay get the 22nd item. That ties everything together. The item that makes all other items more valuable. Comment merchant if you are still here. Welcome to the inner circle. The 22nd item is trust. You cannot buy trust. You cannot stockpile trust. But without trust, trading is impossible. You build trust before collapse through community relationships, reputation for reliability, and demonstrated competence. You are known as person who helps, who provides value, who keeps commitments. When collapse happens, people remember. They come to you. They trade with you. They protect you because you are valuable to community. Trust is multiplier that makes all 21 items more valuable. Start building it now. Help neighbors. Share knowledge. Be reliable. Create social capital that becomes your greatest asset when everything else fails. Trust is the ultimate wealth in collapse economy. Build it deliberately starting today.